What's up, Jetheads, and welcome back into Vinny and the Jets. Please like, share, subscribe. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you to all my new subscribers I got this week. I look forward to dropping in more new content for you guys. And we had over 300 views for the first time on this channel since we got started. I was completely shocked. So that's awesome. Hey, anytime you leave a like, you share the video, it helps with the algorithm of this channel. So again, just thank you. I'm at a loss for words. Still very raw, but hey, let's get into it. How nice was it to have a bye week this week? We don't need to talk about losing, struggles, or just bullshit, and to watch some real football this week. And hey, with our draft positioning going into 2022, the Panthers lost. That was great. Seattle right now is down to Pittsburgh 14-0. Looks like they're going to lose. That's great. And no effect on the Jets, but just my personal pleasure is watching the Giants get beaten up by the Los Angeles Rams, just completely embarrassed in MetLife Stadium. That was great. I enjoy that. So today, in this week's episode, I want to talk about building blocks that we have going into next year. I have the whole depth chart currently where it's at in front of me. We'll just go down the line position by position where I think we're comfortable, where we need improvement, what to address in the draft, what to address in free agency. So the biggest thing of all for me personally is the offensive line, because the game is obviously won in the trenches. So let's start from the left side of the line and let's work all the way down. So we got Highway 77 at left tackle and Mekhi Becton. Now, I know he's injured, and I think I would still draft another tackle, even one of our late-round picks, just as security, just in case, God forbid, he goes down again in the future. But when he's out there and he's hot and he's doing his thing, I think he could be the rock of the line. So left tackle, I think we're solidified right there. And George Fant's been doing his thing on the left side. I would extend him. I would definitely see if you want to consider bringing him in as the insurance piece if you don't want to sacrifice a draft pick. So left tackle, you're good. Let's go to the next position in left guard. Elijah Vera Tucker so far has been my favorite pick of this 2021 draft class, even more than Zach Wilson. I think he's going to be the left guard for the next 10 to 12 years. Enough said. Let's go to center. Connor McGovern has had an awful season. He had a bad preseason. He struggled. He commits penalties. I'd like to see him go at the end of the year. I don't even want him here as a reserve. This is one of the positions that I would definitely address with one of your 2 first-round picks in 2022, specifically the one that Seattle holds, because Seattle, more likely than not, is going to finish a lot higher than the New York Jets in the draft positioning. Right now, I think they're at like 12 or 13, if I'm not mistaken. You can definitely get a quality center at a rookie premium in that draft positioning. So that I would put into a young kid at center to let him be able to grow with Zach Wilson calling the signals. Let's go to the next one. The biggest weakness of all of this line is right guard, and Greg Van Roten has been hot garbage from the day that we got him here. He's been terrible. He's lousy. He calls out his own quarterback. I'm surprised they haven't cut his ass already because he's that bad. Now, with what right guard, I'd like to see somebody with experience to be next to the center if you're going to go with a rookie at center. And the name that I have been preaching since preseason is Brandon Scherff from the Washington football team. They offered him a contract that would have made him the highest paid right guard in NFL history, and they still turned it down. That being said, they're the number 2 team in salary cap space as it stands today. I would make him your number 1 target in free agency next year to shore up the line 100%. And then at right tackle, I bring back Morgan Moses. I have no issue with him. He held his own. He did what he needed to do. I probably give him like a 2-year deal at like $15 million and guarantee like 10 of it, with an option to get out of it in the second year if he truly struggles. And you know what? You could worry about it down the line. And I think that's it, because the 2 positions for me right now that are the concern is, obviously I said center, I'd go young. Right guard, I go with experience. So center and right guard. You go a little bit further down the line and you look at tight end, and you have even more trash out there with Tyler Kroft, who hasn't been there on every single game. And then you got that piece of shit in Ryan Griffin, who I don't even know why they brought him back. He's awful. And historically, we've never been good at tight end. I think the last good one we even had was Dustin Keller. That was 10 years ago. So with tight end, I would probably go young again. I know they had a bust in Chris Herndon, but the past is the past. You actually got a 4th-round pick back from him from Minnesota. I would definitely go to the draft when it comes to tight end. So let's go to our wideouts on the outside, because it's like mezza right there. On the one hand, you got Corey Davis, who's making $13 million on the left side. He's obviously not going anywhere. He's had his issues with the drop passes, but he's going to get into a rhythm with Zach Wilson eventually. It's the first year, new quarterback, new playbook, new teammates. It's going to take some time for him to grow. I'm not ready to give up on the guy, especially not after 5 games. Now, on the other side, you got 2 veterans that you got to make a decision on. Jamison Crowder, who I would actually trade right now at the deadline. I think you can get at least a 4th-round pick for him rather than letting him walk. He's not going to be in the long-term plans of the team. We're not going to the playoffs. This is a 1-4 team, possibly going to be a 1-5 team after they lose on Sunday in Foxborough. But flip what you can for him. I really would. Keenan Cole, I don't think you can get something for him on the market. So let him play out the season, see how it goes. But Crowder, I think, has value there. And the Jets already have 10 draft picks. You get an 11th pick. They're not going to use all those draft picks on collegiate players. You package picks. So if you see guys that you want to reach for, and you don't want to see them slip away, you move back up. Or if you see somebody you don't like, you can move back and even package more picks going down into future drafts, 2023, 2024, whatever you want to do. So, and then of course, under center, Zach Wilson. There's your another building block. You know, you're not going to toss the quarterback after 1 year. And for those fans that have been bashing him, he said he sucks, he's this, he's that. Just come out and say you didn't like him from the time that they drafted him. They weren't going to get Lawrence. Fields is Fields. He's got his own struggles there in Chicago. Mac Jones was on a loaded Alabama team. He can't make most of the throws that Zach Wilson makes. And Lance, I think he needs a little bit more time. And in the backfield, I absolutely love what Michael Carter's doing. I said it last week. He looks like a young Maurice Jones-Drew. He's very slippery. He's shifty. He's fast. I like everything about him. And I think he has a future here. So, but remember, running backs are a dime a dozen. That being said, another guy I would entertain trying to see if you could flip is getting rid of Tevin Coleman. I hated that signing from the beginning. The guy is hurt every single year, but I mean, what are you really going to get for the guy? Because, running backs are just a waste these days. So even if you can get a conditional 7th-round pick, I'd entertain it. There's a couple teams out there that got really hit at running back. I immediately think of the Baltimore Ravens. I immediately think of the Los Angeles Rams. So even if you can get a 7th-round pick, get him out of here because he's not part of the long-term plan. He's just not. They brought him in here because he was a San Francisco guy with Saleh. I don't see the impact there. I didn't even see it in preseason, so I've had it with him. Gone. So, offense is where all the issues are with this team right now. The offensive coordinator is very suspect right now. I haven't been thrilled with what I've seen with LaFleur. I hate the fact that we're always playing from behind in every single game. It's very, very discouraging. But you got to give them time because there's injuries, there's youth, there's a lot of growing to do. That being said, that doesn't mean I'm sold on the guy. I'm in love with him. I mean, if this offense, God forbid, finishes 30th or worst, I think you almost have to entertain another new offensive coordinator. And I know that's not what you want to do to a young kid when he's coming into the NFL, especially in his first year in the league, to learn a new system and to play at the highest professional level. That's really hard to do. But again, if you finish 30th or worst overall, you almost have to really sit down and reevaluate everything from top to bottom. So, that being said, let's go to the defense. So, we spent almost 10 minutes on the offense. You believe that? Defense, the strength of this team is the defensive line. Right now, on one side, you got Shaq Lawson you traded for. I think they gave up only a 6th-round pick for him. He's been all right. He's not Carl Lawson. Now, Carl Lawson, you have to understand, he's coming back. He makes $15 million. He will be on the team next year, right or wrong, and I'll be thrilled to see him out there. I would probably lighten his load in next year's preseason. Shaq Lawson, on the other hand, who's to say? I mean, he's a Band-Aid right now. I don't know if he's in the long-term plans. Quinnen Williams has been a little bit more disruptive. He's finally putting it all together. He's a building block that you put right there next to Carl Lawson. And Foley Fadakowski, I got nothing bad to say about him. He's one of the more vocal guys in the locker room. He's one of your leaders. You don't want to cut ties with that guy. And then, of course, you got the main man who just got paid, John Franklin Myers, who, he laid an egg last week in London, but the week prior to that in Tennessee, he had the game of the year. So he's in the long-term plan. So for the most part, this entire defensive line will be back in 2022 to run the scheme out again. Behind the defensive line and the linebacking core might need a little touch of assistance there. So on the one side, you got Jamie Sherwood, who injuries, this and that. I don't know if he's a quality starter. I think he's a depth piece. I think he's a special teams player, but I don't know if he's an every down linebacker. The man in the middle, CJ Mosley, I can't say anything bad about him. He's the hit man right there. $17 million. He's not going to go anywhere. I mean, I just wish they put more production on the field to justify the $17 million. But he's definitely going to be there because that contract is beyond belief ugly that Mike handed out to him. But hey, he's a great player. He justified it. Just, there's not enough pieces on this defense to help the guy out because he can't do it all by himself. And then, excuse me, you have on the other side, this dude, I don't even know him. He's Deshaun Phillips. He's a nobody. And behind him, you got other hot garbage like Blake Cashman and Quincy Williams, who's, he's flashed. The thing with him I don't like is he likes the big dramatic play. Rather than take the easy sack, he goes for the kill shot. Instead of taking the easy interception, he goes to blow things up. I mean, you can't do that every single game. Sometimes you got to play boring football, like Robert Saleh said. But I don't know if you see him back next year. I could see them bring him in the preseason to compete, but I wouldn't put too much stock in him being a Jets member long term. Just don't see it. Into the secondary, another area that very youthful, but they definitely need help. As far as Bryce Hall goes, on one side, I think they found a gem there in the 5th round. He is definitely CB1 on this team. I don't think there's any question about it. I didn't put too much stock in him, but he's completely shocked me. I think he's CB1 for a while, barring any traumatic, injury. On the other side, at the other corner spot, it's been more round robin. I think Brandon Echols is okay. I think he's a little too undersized for my taste. And behind him, you got guys getting in time. Guys like Michael Carter II, who I like, but I think he's rotational. I think he's special teams. And then Isaiah Dunn, who they made the highest unpaid free agent of all time that wasn't drafted. But again, rotational piece, nickelback. Guys you bring in on 3rd down in special situations. They're not every down players. And that's what I really want, truthfully. In our draft next year, the number one piece that I want to address is getting a lockdown quarterback to run this style of defense. A lockdown quarterback. Are you going to find Darrelle Revis? Probably not. Can you get something close to it? Why the hell not? And lastly, in the last line of defense with our safeties, Marcus May, I would absolutely trade. Between the DUI, the injuries, the nonsense, if you can find a partner in Tampa or in LA with the Rams that are willing to part with a 3rd round pick, that's pretty much one of the few rounds we don't have a second pick to pick in. Why the heck not? He's not going to be here. Ashton Davis is now coming off of injury. I haven't seen enough tape of him to really pass judgment on the kid. And then at the other safety, you got another guy that they picked up off the scrap heap in Adrian Colbert. He's not going to be here. That's a given. So in conclusion, as far as possible trade targets that I mentioned on the roster, Marcus May, Jamison Crowder, Tevin Coleman, and I hate to say this one too, but maybe Denzel Mims. Because if he's truly not part of your offense, if he's not part of the long-term solution, get rid of him now. Because he's more worth to you as a draft pick than he is as a roster spot on the bench. So make your decision now. You have 2 weeks to do that. I forgot to talk about the 2 specialists. Brandon Mann, I think, is going to be back as the full-time punter for the next 2 years at the minimum once he comes back from the injury. And Matt Amendola, I think he's a good kid. I just don't think he's the long-term kicker. Hell, if you could find somebody on the free agent wire at the end of the season, like a Ryan Suckup per se from Tampa, I would even take a chance on wasting one of the last draft picks on a kicker. Get the best one in the nation next year. Why the heck not? Who that person is, I couldn't tell you right now. But hey, right now as it stands, before any deals are made, on October 15th, we got 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, a 3rd, 2 number 4s, 2 number 5s, and a 6. The number 2 amount of money in cap space going into 2022. This is going to be a big, big overhaul. The team is going to look very different, and I can't wait to see what happens. So, guys, I hope you had a very relaxing bye week. Next week, we have a barn burner on our hands going into Foxborough. Can't wait to see what the spread is, because you know that Belichick and company, they're going to be out for blood after the way they lost that game to Dallas today. So, other than that, as always, like, share, subscribe. Have a good night.